everybody, I'm Jonathan Randall, and welcome to another special episode of American Jew, The Interview. I'm so happy to have with me a friend of mine, hilarious comedian, Palestinian comedian, Eman El Husseini. How you doing, Eman?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. This is such a cool setup. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, well, I'm so thrilled to have you back on the show. Always great to see you. I was fortunate enough to open up for Eman recently when she was doing like an immigrant show. Even though I'm not an immigrant, but still, it was such a blast. I had a great time, and it was awesome. And I'm so thrilled to have her on the show. How are you celebrating Ramadan?
Sort of. Like I decided to stop drinking, eating pork, and seeing my wife.
Oh, okay. All right.
I mean?
So you're
I'm
taking
trying
more
to
of like a
respect
Lent
that.
level.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm like Muslim light or Christian. You could call me Christian, I guess.
Christian. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have a good Easter?
It was good. I was traveling, and it was an easy travel because you know how like the airports have been such a nightmare, and it was easy and it was good. And I'd like to thank Jesus Christ for that.
Oh, okay. Hey, well, he takes a lot of things. He's got to get it where he can, you know? Things have been tough for Jesus, especially if you're part of the Catholic Church. But anyways, that's a whole nother discussion. I want to talk with Eman about Palestine.
That's right. Thank you for even uttering the word Palestine. That's like huge.
Okay.
You know that?
A lot of people say that, like, I don't think so. But people are always like, you're so brave, Jonathan. I'm like, what am I doing that's brave? Just like sitting on my roof or in this room, just like talking about the fundamental human rights abuses of people. Like, that's not brave. What's brave is, all the Palestinian people that are trying to live their lives and are going through the occupation and the oppression that they constantly have and are persevering and living each day. Those people are brave, I think.
I mean, the reason people tell you you're brave is a lot of Jews have had, including my wife, have had trouble with their family expressing what you just expressed.
Okay.
I guess your parents are cool?
I mean, I'm not really close with my family. My kid brother...
There you go.
That's what it is. My kid brother actually, after one of my last videos, I noticed he unfollowed me.
Your brother.
And I was actually really hurt about it.
Right.
I was like, that's like the smallest amount of support that he could offer me as an artist is to follow me on social media and like to unfollow me. I was like, oh man, that hurts, but what could you do?
So one sibling?
I have a bunch of siblings.
Oh, you have a lot.
But that was that's the
one.
latest one to unfollow me.
Oh my God. So my in-laws have unfollowed all of Jess's cousins, have unfollowed both of us because of speaking out against the occupation, and Zionism has gotten so out of control. And yeah,
it has gotten out of control. And just to make sure people who don't know, not only is Eman a Palestinian comedian, but she's married to a Jewish person, which is amazing, by the way. I think that's so special. I think we need more of that in the world. I feel like I gotta find a nice Palestinian girl to settle down with, and then like maybe our kid could like help. Like free Palestine. I don't know. That's like a weird fantasy I have.
I know. So I married my wife so I could criticize Judaism. No,
okay,
Zionism.
Like
no, that's not true. But a lot of people make fun of that. They're just like, oh, you married Jess, so you could just criticize Israelis or Israel and Zionism out publicly. And I'm like, no, I did that like way before meeting her. Anyway, a lot of people are upset with her because she's 100% like on my side right now, including her family. Like nobody, it's so hard to talk about Israel because it was made hard for so long. Like you couldn't criticize it. You couldn't say anything. It was automatic. The answer was automatically you're anti-Semitic.
Which is crazy.
Crazy.
And by the way, this is something that I've been thinking about a lot. Anti-Zionists, aren't against, is like the Jewish people having their own land, they're having their own country. They just don't want it to be where other people are already living.
Exactly. And it's just like the complete denial of how Israel was created, of just like displacing people, taking over their culture, and a lot of religious, I want to ask you, I don't know how much you know the Torah, but I feel like there are a lot of religious Jews that do not agree with this whole like Israel belongs to us. Like it's only going to belong to you guys when the Messiah comes back.
Right. I mean, that's the thing, I've talked about before on an American Jew podcast where there are the three oaths and there are other things where like God is supposed to deliver us to Israel or to the Holy Land. We're not supposed to be taking it. So by taking it, it's almost an affront to Judaism and to God, because we're not doing what we're told. I know there's the Neturei Karta, which are a group of like Hasidic Jews that are very into the pro-Palestinian movement, who don't get taken so seriously now because they went to some Arab country had something that I guess was about Holocaust denial, and they went there to say, no, the Holocaust was real, and try to explain to these people the Holocaust is real. But the fact that they even went, they're so easily ostracized.
Right.
But that's one of the reasons that the Neturei Karta and a lot of other Jewish people think, yeah, we shouldn't even be in Israel because God hasn't delivered us there.
Right.
And, another thing which I've been, trying to do more and more research about and thinking about, and I definitely, want to delve deeper into, is just a lot of people have lived on the land of Israel. Like, it's not only like the Jews want to be like, this is our land.
It should be
Other
open for
people,
everybody.
it should be open. I think
It's a holy land for so many people. Like,
Absolutely.
even Baha'is,
Christians,
we talk
Muslims.
about Christians, Muslims, but Baha'is too. I mean, so many different religions. Look, ultimately, I don't think we should have borders anymore. That's the truth. But I do feel like what Israelis are doing stands out because of the lies, like the blatant lies about how they're the most moral army in the world, just like that propaganda, the hasbara about how Zionists, came in peace and decided to like take half of the country. And they just made it such a beautiful story when that was not the case. People got massacred, kicked out of their homes, including
750,000 people.
That's it.
Including your parents.
My parents. My mom's from Jaffa, and she got kicked out with her, 6 siblings and her parents. My grandfather actually died from a broken heart, if that's even possible. But it's so hard to just come into somebody's home. Like, look at us. We're pretty privileged. We live in New York. We have a really good life. Anybody comes in to want to share our apartment that's not a roommate. I don't know how big your apartment is. And they say, the world decided that they're going to get half of your apartment. Are you going to comply to that?
No, probably not. I'm not going to be very happy about it.
Simple terms. Yeah, because that's the argument that I have a lot with Zionists. It's like, well, the international community, this is the only time Zionists will like the United Nations, is that the United Nations decided that we should split Palestine in half for the Jews. And everybody just quotes that all the time. But it's like, where were the Palestinians when that was decided?
Right.
Nobody asked us. It was like a colonial time. The British just decided to divide it up, not just decide. I don't want to make it sound so simple, but
right. I feel like I know even earlier with the Balfour Declaration, I feel like they were playing both sides.
Right.
They were telling, oh, we're going to give you a Jewish homeland, and they were telling the Arabs, oh, we're going to give you the land too, and they were kind of pitting people against each other, which was almost the start of what they want to happen. Which one thing that I do believe is that there are external forces that want Jews and Muslims to beat each other's throats. I know evangelical Christians believe that the coming of Jesus will only happen after that holy war. And I think there are other people that, they want that to happen because, like I've expressed, we're cousins. We are the same people. We should be united. We shouldn't be divided.
That's absolutely true. I think that Zionism had to be based on propaganda and lies, because how could you have a conscience and support that if it wasn't presented as in the most moral army in the world? We try to negotiate with the Palestinians, but they never want to. We try all of these things. But now, today, that we have, we're connected all across the world, we could see the truth. Once upon a time, we were limited to the 6 o'clock, 11 o'clock news, and that's it. We got the stories that way. It was so, and of course, now we're seeing Western media is so supportive of Israel, and they keep talking about clashes on both sides, and I want to shoot myself.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's crazy that so many Israelis are like, the West is against us, and it's like, well, what are you talking about?
Right.
What are you talking about? The propaganda is so strong, and it's so strong that they even call their military the Israeli Defense Force when they're on the offensive, most of the time. They want the world to think that they're, always defending, when they're not defending. What they're doing is they're invading, they're occupying, they're oppressing. They're raiding, they're doing horrible things, and they want to present themselves that's one of the biggest propaganda ever, just what they call their military.
But that's it, because if they said the truth, it would have never, worked. So they had to like make up this whole story about this like oasis and nobody was there. That's another thing, how it started, you know, like I'm curious to know how you realized that Zionism was a lie.
I guess the more the more research I was doing, the more videos I was seeing, the more news I was reading, just the more where I was really trying to understand what was going on there and wasn't just buying into like what I was fed growing up is when I kind of realized it. And I think, I actually was, very much trying to like not be so anti-Zionist, and trying, because peace is really what I want. I really want a peaceful and prosperous coexistence, and I am still hoping that there could be a two-state solution, even though it seems more and more that the chances of that happening are less and less. But the more research I've done, the more I've read, the more I've talked to people, the more I realize how much the Palestinian people are getting screwed.
So screwed since day one. But what made you get to that point? Was it like just meeting Palestinians? Was it like, because a lot of Zionists I know, including, I shouldn't even talk about them because Jess will get mad, but it takes a lot for a Zionist to acknowledge anything that has to do with Palestinians. So I'm wondering how it happened to you.
I mean, I guess like the truth is I wasn't like such like a huge like Zionist,
right.
Like I had been to Israel a couple times, I identify culturally Jewish. I'm not religious at all. I'm not particularly spiritual or anything. So, it was really this thing about like human shields. I think that really got to me, right, where they kept killing children and being like, oh, well, the Palestinians are using them as human shields. And it's like, well, at what point do you be like, all right, we got to figure out a better way then to, stop terror, as they want to say, even though it seems more and more to me like resistance, than killing children. Right. And it just seemed like that was a blanket excuse. And then I guess I just kind of went down the rabbit hole. And the more, I wasn't being fed, the Hebrew day school propaganda, the synagogue propaganda, my Jewish community propaganda, the more I realized like what is really happening. And also, I guess, the more Israelis try to like argue with me and try to tell me how horrible I am, self-hating Jew, call me a capo, all these horrible things, I realized how misinformed and indoctrinated these people really are, and it's really sad.
Absolutely. I mean, to me, it's such a relief because coming to Canada, just seeing how everybody was unconditionally supportive of Israel. Like, I couldn't even talk about my Palestinian heritage without being called a terrorist sympathizer. And like, my parents got kicked out of their own home, but it was like I would get canceled immediately. I really had to like go with the flow and always appease Israel. Imagine, do you think Israel has the right to exist? It's like, yeah, I do. I do understand anti-Semitism in the world. I do understand all of these factors. But guys, does anybody give a shit about Palestinian existence? It hasn't happened since Israel's existence.
It's true. I feel like it's Israel that really wants to be, pushing this whole thing. It's anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
It's Zionism has tied itself so hard to Judaism. It's actually suffocating Judaism because Zionism isn't Judaism, all right? Zionism is the death of Judaism. Zionism is almost like the destruction of Judaism, the downfall of Judaism. And it's really sad and horrible, like what's happening, what Zionism has created, where they're like, we're going to create a safe place for the Jews, where it's, first of all, it's not safe there for Jewish people.
Safe if you're like, killing people, like injustice, killing people, they're kicking them out of their homes. Although Israel is obviously a lot stronger, Palestinians have nothing,
right?
Because of Israel, and there's.
Well, I want to ask you about that.
It's not an equal. It's not a war. I just hate hearing. Like, I had a job at the BBC World Service where my wife and I co-hosted Comedians versus the News, and I had to quit my job because of one of the headlines they had, where they were basically, it was when that journalist got shot. Oh my God, I can't. Akleh.
Shireen Abu Akleh?
Yes, exactly. So she got shot, and they did the whole thing about both sides, and it was like violence from both sides. It's like, no, stop saying that. So I had to quit my job, and it became like this huge big deal. But I mean, we've seen.
Yeah, nothing
BBC
happened. A journalist got killed by Israeli forces. super shady, super suspicious, and it was at first they tried to blame Palestinians, and then it became clear that it came from Israel, and it like nothing happened. America's still sending billions of dollars in military aid. It's absolutely ridiculous. While the Palestinian people are suffering.
As a person who's a huge fan of Judaism, honestly, like even before I met Jess, when I came to Canada, I really felt like I just loved Jews. Very liberal, very cultured. I was so drawn to the culture. I mean, my whole family thought I was going to convert to Judaism. This is how big of a fan I am.
She's like, I want a bar mitzvah.
yeah, exactly. Anything to party. But I was just so disappointed to see that it was, Zionists versus a very, very small number that was outspoken against the occupation. It's so rare. I mean, today it's a lot more, which makes me so happy. And I think it's thanks to social media. The truth is out there. Just we see how the cops are horrible to black people. We're seeing how Palestinians are treated like garbage. Dehumanized, forget it, killed, children, put in jail for no reason. I mean, it makes me so mad.
I want to ask you, about something you said where you're like, Palestinians' lives are obviously horrible living under the occupation. It's very sad. But you said it's all because of Israel's fault, and which I understand. But I'm just curious of like what responsibility did you put on Palestinian leadership? Because, obviously the occupation's horrible. Obviously, I feel like, the big bad boss is at the end of the level is Israel. But along the way, there are other bad guys you got to defeat. And I think some of them are Palestinian leaderships who I do believe put hatred for Israel, often hatred for all Jews everywhere, above love for their people. And they want to keep the Palestinian people down because they want to keep them hating Israel rather than help them do better, because there are plenty of Palestinian leaderships that get lots of money that are living great.
And they have, everybody hates Mahmoud Abbas, and you're right. Arab leaders in general are terrible to their people. And we've been caught in this. You could have a secular dictator or you could have a religious dictator. And we've been going back and forth with that, and they're awful, and it's so bad. We see what's happening in Iran. We see what's happening in Saudi Arabia. I'm not putting I don't want to sound like one of those people who just puts, it's the Jews' fault that we have global warming, We definitely...
And then you'll sound like Marjorie Taylor Greene.
But this is the thing for me. What was so disappointing, as a Muslim, I was always so proud of our contribution to society and advancements. But we're so backwards right now. Like people getting upset about drawings of the Prophet Muhammad instead of getting upset with the Taliban killing 150 school children. You're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? So we do take a huge part of the blame. But don't forget, if the West never meddled in our business, I wonder if we'd be as backwards as we are today.
Really?
That's like my thing. And that happened to me. This realization.
But don't you think you'd be more like maybe religious extremists? You'd be more on that far end?
No way. I think the movement towards religious extremism happened when we kept getting screwed over by the West, to be honest. Because we were all if you see pictures of Afghanistan, Iran, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, all of these countries were so progressive. You would think you were in Europe. And I think that movement started when we just had so much, what do you call it, when you hate somebody? Not hate somebody, but you're angry with, resentful. Okay. Resentful towards Western interference.
I mean, I don't see a lot of Muslim creators kind of calling out their own leadership.
Right.
Here I am, a Jewish artist, comedian, calling out my people and what they're doing and the human rights violations and the occupation. And I'm like, but where are the people that are calling out?
Right here.
All right.
Right here. I criticize my own people. I mean, you should hear the arguments that I have with my father about how backwards we are, how Muslims are so sexist and homophobic. I'm telling you, we went back to the Stone Age. The pride of Islam was how progressive we were, how advanced we were. It was education first, not prayer. It was, everything pointed to the right direction, and that's when we had the golden age. But now we're just, again, back to the Stone Ages. And believe me, I criticize everybody. I think Bashar Assad, the president or prime minister of Syria, or whatever you want to call him, is like the most horrible leader ever doing what he's doing to his people. I mean, we're screwed. This is the thing. I don't believe peace is going to happen for Arab and Muslim countries because of our leadership.
Right. Like,
You know?
how
It's so
can we
bad.
promote better leadership? Because it's awesome that you are speaking out, but I feel like I don't see enough people speaking out. I
Yeah.
feel like I see so many people speaking out. Oh, Israel's the worst.
Right.
Like, okay, but like, we got to take some responsibility. And one reason why I speak out so much is because it's like, we got to quit pointing the finger at other people and point the fingers at
100%.
ourselves and say, what are we doing? How could we do better? And I feel like that is a little missing in the Muslim Palestinian community. I mean, I'm still, I put the blame on Israel. I'm going to still continue to call it Israel.
Blame Israel for sure. Blame Western interference. To me, it's like, okay, all of that happened. Our countries are backwards now. We're set back to the Stone Ages. We don't have the resources we once have, and the huge resentment towards the West. And because Israel continues, I think, because all the Zionists that I argue with always tell me how Israel is always singled out. Why don't you talk about other injustices? And I do all the time. Like, I think the black cause is even more horrible than what's happening to Palestinians, although what's happening, you shouldn't compare.
Right.
But I'm outspoken about all injustices. I hate anti-Semitism too. I love Jews, I love minorities. I think anybody who's being oppressed, you should speak out about it. But Arabs should definitely criticize their own people, just like Israel does. I actually give the example of how nobody criticized Israel for so long. It was like basically illegal once upon a time, or like you'd get canceled right away.
Right.
It reminds me of extremist Muslims. Like, we never criticize somebody who's religious. We never criticize. It's like, you're some form of authority. And Jews did that with anybody who was not critical of Israel. It's like, you're some kind of authority. Whatever you're saying is right, as long as there's no criticism. I mean, I forget what the question is now, but I could
just
rant
about
this.
better leadership.
The
Someone stepping forward and people calling out. Like, people are protesting now in Israel.
Right.
Every week, thousands and thousands of people are taking to the street because of the judicial reforms. They're protesting the new government. Why aren't the Palestinian people taking to the street to protest their own government, their own leadership? I mean, Abbas has been leader forever. They don't like him. He's not effectual at all.
Right. He's
then
actually
there's
tortured
Hamas.
Palestinians himself, 100%. I also feel that Hamas was a creation by Israel, just to tell you, because it was the scapegoat to be like, it's their fault. You see, Hamas shot rockets. It's so convenient to keep blaming a terrorist organization. I've had this discussion with so many people, but I put Israel, the Israeli government, and Hamas on the same level of terrorism.
Okay, but don't you think that, Israel has, of course, so many flaws.
Yeah.
But they do care about their people.
Their own people.
They care very much about the people. They care about the
100%.
quality of life of the people that live in Israel. And can we say the same thing about Hamas?
No, we can't. I don't think so. I think Muslims have this whole thing that the afterlife is more important, and fighting for justice is really important. But I don't think they don't care as much as the media makes them look. Like, of course, everybody always tells me, why don't you go to Gaza with Jess so they could throw you off a roof or kill you? It's like, a lot of these settlers today and these right-wing people would kill me too. Like, they're anti-gay. There was pink washing for a while with secular Jews, but that's even like out the window. I mean, my thing, for sure, we shouldn't just blame Israel for what's happening. I know that we're resentful. Like, my father would rather live in China than like stay here. He's like actually actively looking to move because he hates Western society so much for this whole, like, you're lucky to live here, you're lucky to live here. It's like, if you never came and meddled with our issues, we wouldn't come here and then go through racism because everybody hates Muslims here, et cetera, et cetera. So we are to blame in a sense, but people are going to become like, hold on to their beliefs and go the extra mile, I think, when you're being like judged, like, this is the way that you're supposed to live. It's democracy, it's freedom. What you're doing is wrong. It's like, fuck you. Like, I believe in my culture and my God, and you're not somebody to tell me that your way of living is better. you know?
Right. So, I want to talk a little bit about something. We've talked about this before. You are a member of the LGBTQ community. You are a Palestinian. That is often what Israelis, Zionists, like a retort, an argument that they'll want to give, and they'll want to say like, oh, well, you support Palestinians, they'll kill all gay people, they have horrible gay rights. And of course, they're, Bezalel Smotrich, who's, the Minister of Finance in Israel, he brought animals on a parade and was making fun of the gay parade and said gays are bestiality. There are Jews and Israelis that are also very homophobic, but it does seem that in the Muslim community, it's severely frowned upon to the point that they'll kill you, from what I understand.
We are very regressive. We're very regressive. I'm not going to defend our people. This is an argument that I have with my people all the time. We are racist. We're openly sexist, unapologetically sexist, unapologetically homophobic, transphobic, anything like that. The thing is, a lot of Muslims feel that they're regressive. Somebody like my father, who's so proud of being Muslim, but he really blames, he takes part of the blame, but he really blames Western interference for our regression. It's like, if you guys never messed with us, we would be fine. But, it was the colonial past that went into these countries. Like, don't forget, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, they were all one country. All of these divisions that happen in Southeast Asia or the Middle East or any Africa, these are all like a divide and conquer situation that ruined everybody's life except for colonizers.
So
am I staying on topic? I feel like
you went a little bit off, but I guess I'm curious. Like, what do you want to? What do you have to say to people that want to use the fact that homophobia and gay rights are, I guess, nearly non-existent in a lot of the Muslim communities, when they want to use that to kind of, give excuses for the occupation, or just say like, Palestinian people, the Palestinian people, they want to keep down minorities within their own communities or whatever. They're against gay people. So how could you stand up? How could you speak out so blatantly, against Israel and for the Palestinian cause and all this, when, like you said, people say, oh, if you go to Gaza, they're going to hang you,
We are
what do you have
dying
to say
to get
people?
a ticket to Gaza. Jess and I want to go to Gaza so bad. So, guys, can you put your money together, send us to Gaza to see if they're going to throw us off a roof? No, it's so, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, when it started, if anybody's oppressed, everybody's oppressed. There's no freedom unless everybody is equal. So I'm outspoken about gay rights, of course. I do take it out on my dad, who's very liberal, but my father's also at fault because he's so complacent to our cultures and traditions and thinking that gay people, it's not normal, and thinking all of these things. But we've been deprived. I blame him for it. I know that we keep complaining about resentment towards the West, but now what? It's been so many years. Now what? Why can't we go back to how progressive we were once upon a time? Because obviously whatever we're doing right now is not working.
Okay.
The religious right, all of this sexism, homophobia, racism, all of that is not working for us. So I would love for us to go back to the days of Prophet Muhammad. Everybody, don't forget, now people are telling me that I can't be Muslim and gay at the same time. This is what I'm dealing with. It's like, who even told you that you could tell me how I could identify? This is how far people are going. And then you have like more progressive people that are just like, she is Muslim, but she's just gonna go to hell. Like, it's so insane to me that one of like the major rules in Islam is that it's not up to you to say who's going to heaven or hell. Even if you see a prostitute on the street that you assume is going to hell, you don't know what her fate is afterwards. So it's like they're doing everything. Muslims are not only being regressive, they're doing the opposite of Islam's teachings. I once, growing up, I thought being Muslim meant like, it was such a hippie, it was introduced to me like such a hippie, lovey-dovey, everybody's equal, women are equal, people of color are equal, everybody's the same. And now it's just like so hateful.
So, that's horrible. It's really sad. But I'm just, and that sucks. And I feel for you, and I'm so sorry that you have to go through that. I mean, geez, you're getting already shit for being Palestinian, oppressed for being Palestinian, put down for being Palestinian. Then because of your sexual orientation, you got to take even more, even from your own people, from your own side. It must be so horrible. But I guess.
And I'm a female comedian.
Oh,
it's just like
even worse.
In every aspect. Yeah,
that's like an oxymoron right now. I'm just playing around.
It's
I'm joking.
True. No, but it's true. You know what? I started therapy recently, and I didn't realize how like every single aspect of my identity is hated. Literally, being a female comic, I joke about it, but it's the truth. Being Palestinian, being Muslim, being gay, there's nothing that people like about me.
I like all those things about you.
Well, you do, but
and you're like a wonderful person,
We're
too.
not all in New York. If I go anywhere in the world, people would be like so horrified by my identity, all the aspects of my identity. And you're right. I'm like causing culture shock to people who've never met a Muslim Palestinian, but I'm also causing culture shock to my own people when I perform, and I'm so outspoken about being gay and not afraid, because it is a huge prevalent problem how gay we are. I have a lot. So I always say that I'm not a celebrity yet, because my fan base is basically closeted Muslims and closeted anti-Zionist Jews.
Okay.
My DMs are popping, but the rest, nobody's coming out to watch me. But yeah, I get asked advice all the time by young Muslim gays, like, how did you come out to your parents? How did you do it? Like, they would kill me or this. Safety first. Number one, I never felt like my parents were going to kill me or even disown me. My parents, what they decided to do is be like closeted about being okay with my marriage, but they can't show the community that it's okay, that they're okay with that.
That sucks.
Like, God forbid people think they're not homophobic, because this is the norm, and this is something we really do have to acknowledge and discuss and fix. I remember a long time ago, a Palestinian Christian producer who booked me on a show wrote something about how it was a sad day when they legalized gay marriage in America. I was like, you're Palestinian, you're outspoken about Palestinian rights, and you're saying this? It's just so hypocritical. We can't, I say this to Jews, I say this to Muslims, we can't just focus on our cause and what serves us. It really has to be justice for all.
I agree. Peace for all, justice for all, living together, peace and prosperity. So just, before we move on, I just want to ask you, what do you say to Zionists when they want to throw, the homophobia in the Palestinian Muslim community in your face, and reasons why, people shouldn't be fighting for, a free Palestine?
I say, tell your army to stop throwing tear gases in schools of children on a daily basis. Like, we need to be educated, we need to read, and we can't even do that. We can't even have kids go to school. Okay.
There's some guys banging. Yeah, hi, we're in the middle of recording, but the door's over there. Thanks for interrupting. Sorry, we have some old guys like banging on the door. Like, why can't I get into where, like the studio where you guys are recording right now? Like, I don't know.
In the middle of a conversation.
Planning on doing. Like, he saw us like talking, and he's like, old people.
It's so new.
They're who we really should hate. No, I'm just joking. We should have no hate.
But that's what I would tell them. Stop. Let these kids go to school. I went to Palestine to perform stand-up. Sorry that I'm like all over the place. I know that this is it's so hard to focus on one topic, because it's so many aspects to this, whatever's happening there. So I apologize if I'm all over the place. I just want to try to cover every point possible. But I remember going to Palestine to perform. I performed in East Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and Nazareth. And when we went to, I was touring with Maysoon Zayed, Palestinian American comedian, probably like the pioneer of Palestinian comedy in the West. And we went to an orphanage, and I just saw how settlers treated kids going to school. She told me, this is how it started. She told me to wear a headscarf because I'm going to be spit on by settlers.
Right, I was
while
just
I'm
reading about
crossing-
that.
While I'm crossing through. I'm like, okay, I could handle it, but kids going to school, stopping. And don't forget, everybody wants to be like, oh, the settlers are crazy, they're extremists. The country is protecting them. The army is protecting them. Most of the things that they do are protected by the army. Like, to me, there's no difference between a settler, an IDF soldier, the government, and a regular Israeli practically. Like there's like a tiny percentage of Israelis that are left.
Okay, I think the Israeli settlers are the worst of the bunch. They're
But
the most the
why?
extremists because they're the ones that are like really actively trying to steal Palestinian land
Under the protection of the army
of
and the
of
state.
the Israeli army. But there are more, progressive Israelis that are living in, let's say, Tel Aviv or in other places that that want a two-state solution, that want that area to be, a Palestinian state, and they are against also what the settlers, which is kind of what we're seeing with all the protests that are going on, because they're against this government, which consists of, Bezalel Smotrich, a settler, Itamar Ben-Gvir, a settler, like a lot of these settlers.
Well,
they're religious Zionists. That whole group, they're all pretty much settlers. So I think it's a little different than just like your average Israeli, because your average Israeli isn't cutting down olive groves in the West Bank, isn't harassing children on their way to school, but
Right.
Israeli settlers are the ones that are doing
They're
those.
more blatant. It's like the Trumpers in America. They're more blatant and open about it. I do think what's happened, I'm like so happy about the protests and like Israel standing up against this government, because Israeli Jews do not want to have a right-wing government. They don't want to have religious, extremists telling them how to live their life. The whole point of Israel was a secular concept anyway. And now you have these
Right.
religious Jews who are like, actually, you're not Jewish enough. Your synagogue is not Jewish enough. And these people are still paying big bucks to Israel, which is so crazy. I am happy about all of these protests, but I feel like it's almost a great cover-up, and it's not caused by the citizens. But the more the protests are going on, the more the Israeli army is attacking worshippers during Ramadan. The more they're
Well, they do that every year, right?
I know, but this is like I didn't see it to a point of beating people while they're praying, and now it's like it's a free-for-all. You could hit women, you could hit old people, you could put kids in prison. Like, it's just out of control. So I feel like it's kind of a distraction almost.
The protests.
The protests, it's what Israeli citizens want, but I feel like it's such a convenient distraction for the Israeli army to go into refugee camps and, raid people in the middle of the night and wake them up and take the father and beat him in front of his children. Like, all of these things are happening, and everybody's focused on, look at Israelis. They just want to live in peace, and they just want democracy, and they're so great. And nobody's talking about this, what's happening to the Palestinians every night. Like, we're never part of the discussion. That's the truth. We're never part of the discussion. So we can't go to school. We're not part of the discussion. Nobody cares. Everybody's focused on Israel and the Israel political party and how they want to get rid of the courts, because Netanyahu's a fucking criminal and he wants to be, the king of Israel. So it's frustrating for me, as much as I'm like, yay, Israeli citizens go, because I do believe in what they're doing. At the same time, I'm like, please, can we please take a second to see what's happening
to put the spotlight on the oppression of the Palestinian
little
people.
bit,
Well,
but
I'm
never.
talking about it.
You are. Thank
We're
you so
talking
much.
about
That's
it.
why you're going to go viral and become really famous.
Okay, well, I would rather see a free Palestine than be famous. I'd rather see a peaceful and prosperous coexistence for all people, cousins, than famous. But I'll take some fame too. We gotta wrap this up.
No!
I know, I wish I could talk to you forever. You'll have to come back soon and we could continue this conversation.
And I'm so sorry that I wasn't able to follow the conversation.
Hey, it's gonna be okay until I try to edit this.
Let's see.
Until I try to edit clips for social media. Where could everybody find you on social media?
Oh, Eman _LEL _Husseini. On Instagram. I guess follow me there, because nobody cares about Facebook anymore.
Right,
Or
now screw
Twitter.
Facebook.
What's his name? The guy, the Tesla guy?
Elon
still?
Musk? Yeah.
He's
I'm
still-
with you. I don't really care about Twitter.
So just follow me on Instagram. I post about Palestine on a daily basis. It's so important to put what's happening out there. I do this for any form of injustice. Women that are suffering anywhere, Black people in America. That was another frustrating thing for me, how everybody was like, oh, there's no racism that exists in America. Oh, the cops, that's like bad apples. Like, nobody just wants to face the reality of oppression.
Yeah, that there are horrible people.
That's it.
So definitely check Eman out. She not only is she Palestinian, a female comedian, and gay, but she's also a Jew lover, literally
Jew lover!
showing that we can all get together, we can all get along, we can coexist. And her and her wife, I've seen them together, and they're beautiful together, and they support each other, and they work together, and to make both of their lives better. And I think that's an example that we could spread to everybody.
Actually, I'm sorry to interrupt. We don't work together anymore. We decided to work together during the pandemic. It was so awful. And this is kind of like bad to say, but I realized that Palestinians and Jews cannot coexist in the workplace.
Okay, wow. All right. There goes my awesome message that I was trying to wrap up the podcast with. Where I just felt like they had worked together in the past, but
And
also just
awful.
like they worked together as a couple. But I still think that we can work together. We can create a better future for the next generations. Check me out across social media at Jonathan Randall. Thanks for tuning in to this special interview episode of American Jew. Take it easy, y'all.